Are you ready to learn about the history of shockwave therapy? Well, let's go. Hi, I'm Stephanie Wolf, the leading sexual wellness expert in Studio City, California at the Novus Center. Shockwave therapy dates back to World War II, when these depth charges or bombs were released on the submarines. And the submarines had no damage to them whatsoever structurally. And they thought, that doesn't make any sense. Why did it not injure these submarines? It wasn't until some time later when the crew that was on board of these submarines started to feel sick. They went to go see their doctor. They didn't understand what they were feeling. And they learned that these depth charges or these bombs were emitting this high intensity sound wave that was actually destroying their organs. So the doctors took a step back and they said, I don't understand. I don't understand how this is happening. In the 1960s, the Germans decided to start testing this on animals. And they said, we want to get to the root cause. We want to find out what's happening. So they started giving high intensity sound wave therapy to these animals. And the same thing happened. There was no damage to the muscles or the fat of these animals. The only damage happened to their organs. And they thought, we can do something with this. But it took 20 years. Not until the 1980s was lithotripsy invented. Lithotripsy is using high-intensity sound wave technology to break up kidney stones. In fact, lithotripsy is still used today in the ER setting. So if you're trying to pass a kidney stone, and the doctors have determined that it's too large for you to pass, they'll actually schedule you for lithotripsy. Again, lithotripsy is using high-intensity sound waves that are going to cause destruction of this stone. Very similar to what happened to the crew on the submarines during World War II. Once they started realizing that this high intensity was causing destruction, what they found is that the tissue that surrounded the area was getting low intensity sound waves. And this low intensity sound wave was actually regenerating and repairing the tissue that was surrounding the destruction or the destroyed tissue. In the 2000s, they started using low intensity shockwave therapy to treat musculoskeletal injuries. They thought, well, if high intensity destroys tissue and low intensity repairs tissue, why don't we start repairing musculoskeletal tissue? So they started using it on ankles, knees, shoulders. And again, this all started over in Europe first, and eventually it did come to the United States. In 2010 is when this low-intensity shockwave therapy was then used to treat erectile dysfunction and Peyronie's disease. Same idea. It's causing regeneration and repair of the tissue. Why would you want to repair or regenerate the tissue of the penis? Well, as we've said before, all tissue, all blood vessels start to deteriorate with age. That's just the normal aging process. That's what happens. We talked about this before. You get something called endothelial dysfunction. Endothelial dysfunction is where the lining of your blood vessels become destroyed because of diet, smoking, alcohol, caffeine, diabetes, blood pressure. So if you're going to destroy the lining of the blood vessels, you're going to weaken these blood vessels. And so they're not going to be carrying rich oxygenated blood to feed the tissue of the penis. These blood vessels become weak and they're no longer used. So a lot of patients start to do some research. What's going on with me? How come I'm not able to get strong, firm erections anymore? How come I'm not waking up with strong, firm erections in the morning? And they'll go to the urologist, and the urologist says, why don't you try a Viagra or a Cialis? And that's great. Those work in the beginning until they don't. And so what happens to you guys is you'll then be switched over to something called Trimex. And Trimex is an injectable. So it's similar to Viagra and Cialis. It just has a little bit more medication in it, and you are injecting it into the penis in order to get an erection. But as I said before, there's tolerance. You'll start off with a low dose, and then you'll have to increase the dose, and then this dose no longer works for you. So then you go back to your urologist and you say, this isn't working for me anymore. What is my next option? And he'll say to you, well, you can have a penile implant placed. This is when you guys start to do your own research and you're researching, what are my options? What are my alternative options? What else can I do to help preserve or restore or turn back the clock on my erections? I'm here to let you know this isn't hocus pocus. It's actually real. If we can rebuild blood vessels, give you strong, firm blood vessels, you're going to feed that tissue of the penis rich oxygenated blood that also carries with it your stem cells, your growth factors, and your healing properties, so that you can actually start to regenerate the health of your penis. And if you can regenerate the health of your penis, you're going to have stronger, firmer erections without medication. But what I want to say about that is the FDA has still not approved low-intensity extracorporeal shockwave therapy for the treatment of erectile dysfunction or Peyronie's. So any doctor that you are going to go see for this treatment is using this treatment off-label. It's very important that you understand that and that I say that. So just know it is not FDA approved. Why is that important? Because insurance will not cover it. This is going to be a cash pay price to get this treatment. If it's not FDA approved, it will not be covered by insurance. So it is a cash pay option. So with that being said, what I want to also reiterate is that it's very important that you are not smoking and that you have your blood pressure and your blood sugar under control if you are going to go through shockwave therapy. Because I want you to think about it for a second. Shockwave therapy is going to create new blood vessels, and these new blood vessels are going to be strong and sturdy to bring rich oxygenated blood to the tissue. So if you're smoking, you are going to cause damage to these new blood vessels that you're creating. What that means is you're wasting your money and you're wasting your time. If you have high blood pressure and you have high cholesterol, it's important that you are well controlled. Do you know what your blood pressure runs on a daily basis? Do you know what your blood sugars run on a daily basis? The biggest question I always ask in my practice, do you know your hemoglobin A1C? It's very important that you know what that number is, because if your sugars are out of control and your blood pressure is out of control, again, you're going to ruin these new blood vessels that you're trying to create. So you're really just swimming up storm. I hope you learned so much information about shockwave therapy and the history behind shockwave therapy. I truly am so passionate about shockwave therapy, and I want to make sure that I have all the options available for my patients. I want to be able to educate you guys and make the best decision with you. So if you have any further questions or you want our guidance, please give us a call here at the Novus Center.